Hello everyone, this is Sheba Joy. Welcome to my channel Zion Shekinah Official. Zion is God's dwelling place and Shekinah is God's glory. Today we're going to look into something about like what Jesus did just before, his his death and resurrection and ascension. Um, because also now we're in the Lenten season, and which we observe for 40 days, which started on March 10th and it'll end on 17th. Yeah, so that'll be like 40 days. And in this time, this is a time for receiving and absorbing and just not for any gains or means, but just for our spirit man, our spirit renewal. The way we want to understand God is so important. It's not just we want to receive things from God all the time, like give us this, give that. No, not that. But it's definitely in my opinion, it's about receiving from God, about our spirit, and also like purification, cleansing, all that happens in this season. And it shouldn't stop here, and because our God is eternal. So so and the word is the same, yet, and he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So the the way some of us are very serious about the Lenten season, and they pray, they fast, and all that. It should also continue, only because our Bible, our God is forever, right? He was in the past, he is there now in the present, and he is also going to be in the future. So, and is also going to be living forever and ever. Man does not live forever. People die, people have a short span of life. People sometimes don't exist at all, or people are just born as babies and die. But it's not the case with our God. He's eternal, right? And also he is the Alpha and the Omega, which is the beginning and the end. So today we're going to look into Matthew 16, verses 12, I think. I'm going to see from verses 13 to the end, 28. So so when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others say Jeremiah or one of the prophets." So here, Jesus is just not like after when they have entered into Caesarea and Philippi, he asks his disciples, "What do people think, of Jesus? What do they think about him? What do they say he is?" Some disciples say, "Oh, they think that you're John the Baptist, who was beheaded, as soon as Jesus." He gave baptism to Jesus in the Jordan River, and then others say, "Oh, you might be Elijah, who was caught up, in the chariot of fire." And then the others say, "Oh, they think of you like one of the prophets, or Jeremiah, who lived before Jesus." So at the time of at the Roman time, at the time of Babylon and all, Nebuchadnezzar and all that. So here, they give all kinds of answers, and I'm going to come back to why they gave all those answers, even though they were living with him. They were walking with him, they were seeing him, and all that. But finally, what happens is, let's see what Peter says. "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" And Jesus is asking Peter. So Peter says, Peter says that Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." How did he know this? So immediately Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonas, for this was not revelation to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades is hell, will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he ordered his disciples not to tell anyone that he was Messiah. So here it is a very interesting twist, right? He asked disciples, and then they say all sorts of answers, give him all sorts of answers. But then Jesus asks, Simon Peter. And immediately he says that Jesus is, what does he say? That he says that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of the living God. So as soon as he says that Jesus is upon this rock, he calls Peter the rock. Upon this rock I will build my church. Why did, now all this transpired in just like Matthew 16 verses 13 to 20, in a matter of like 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 7 verses. I was going to say 7, but I was not. So anyway, so what happened here? All of the disciples were with Jesus all the time. That was number one. The second point is that they were walking and talking with him. That is point number 2. The third point is that they were conversing with him equally, on equal basis as the others, as everyone, the 12 disciples. And the fourth point is it's not that Jesus only spoke to few, or he spoke to Peter, or he spoke to at different levels. No, he didn't. He spoke to all of them. He taught all of them at the same time. So that's point number 4. Point number 5 is that Jesus, when they saw the miracles, the signs and the wonders that Jesus did at the same time, like their eyes and their heads were gazing and watching those miracles at the same time. When all these things have happened, why do you think that some disciples, that all of these disciples gave different answers, but the most important and the right and the correct one Peter could give, not the others? Why? See, the important thing is, and so the story here is that actually I think I should read some more verses here, and also it's very important, like we'll know why. Verse 20. So here what happens is Jesus also talks about its death. He tells the disciples later in Matthew chapter 16 verses 21. He says, he talks about his death. He says that we must go to Jerusalem, and then a lot of things, they will suffer. He will suffer in the hands of the elders and the chief priests and the teachers, and also Jesus is talking about his death. Immediately what happens is Peter, he takes Jesus aside and he says, I rebuke that, I rebuke it, Lord, whatever you're saying that, that you're going to die and suffer and all that stuff, I rebuke it, because, and this shall never happen to you, he says. So immediately, Jesus calls him Satan. So do you see the twist? Like, in verses 13 to 20, that paragraph, Jesus called him the rock upon which he will build his church, he said. And the gates of hell will not prevail, he said. And he will hold the keys to hell, and it will not prevail. On that rock he will build the church. On whose rock? On the name of Peter. So, but in verses 21 to the other verses, he says that, uh, he- I think I should read this 23. Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You're a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves." So this is another thing. But so immediately Jesus calls him Satan. And he says, you're a stumbling block to me. So you do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. And it's so important at this time to understand, at this time especially, to understand the spirit realm. So here, so all those things happen. And Peter, from the spiritual standpoint of view, he understood who God was, who Jesus was. And when he knew that Jesus was the Son of the living God and he has come into this world as a Messiah, immediately Jesus pronounces that upon this rock I will build my church. But when we see the other verses, Peter is functioning in the flesh. And when he is functioning in the flesh, he says, "Oh, whoever is coming to, torment you, torture you, put you to death, and all that stuff, Lord, I'm going to rebuke it," he says. And immediately Jesus says, that you're a stumbling block and you are Satan, get thee behind me. So there are one person showing two kinds of things, showing two kinds of answers, showing two kinds of behaviors, showing two kinds of attitudes, showing two kinds of spirits, in one body. So what my point today is to drive is, as a Christian, it's not just enough if we are called Christians, because we go to church and then we come back. But most of the Christians are so worldly, knowing the word of God, they do not understand basic things. The reason I'm saying is, because see, Peter was with Jesus all the time till his death and resurrection and ascension. He was there. But yet in his flesh, what did he say? He will rebuke it. He was not functioning in spirituality. He was not functioning in spirit form. He in spirit realm. He was functioning in a flesh realm. So what happened in a flesh way? So immediately he blurted out things that he was not supposed to have said, but he had to say that because he was in flesh. And folks, when you are in flesh, you will talk as, and that's why Jesus had to call him Satan. It's not that Peter became Satan, or he was a follower of Satan, or or Satan entered him or something. No, it was not that completely. But what it was is, when Christians are operating in the flesh, they become the recipients or the reciprocals or the carriers of satanic stuff. See, there is only good and bad in this world. There is no lukewarm, there is no like little good, little bad, or too much good, little bad, or too bad, little good. There's nothing like that for a Christian. A Christian is supposed to live either extremely good or extremely in the spirit way, or in the flesh way. Or if they are not living in the spiritual situation, in the spiritual scenario, then they're going to live in the flesh. So here for Peter also, this was the same thing. And see, we Christians, we think, oh, we are very good, we go to heaven because we go to church, we have become evangelists, we've become deacons, or we've become pastors, or we've become bishops, or we've become or we have become just the body of Christ, just going into church, coming out, and then sharing some things and all that. No, it's not that. It is not that at all. Because a Christian life, The other day I was seeing the reel, and one of the actresses, her name is Nagma. Her mother was a Muslim, and I think her father was a Muslim. I'm not sure, but one of the parents are a Muslim and other is Hindu. But she said, she got very intrigued by who Jesus was, because she said no other God sacrificed for humans, but Jesus did. And she wanted to find more about Jesus, and then she came into the Lord, and she knew about Jesus, and she started following Jesus. She became a Christian. She left movies, she left everything. So it's very important that when we know God, when we know Jesus, when we know the principles of God, when we know the Bible, when we go to church every day, we must live out that kind of life. But if we live out something else, like the world lives, then we should not even be called Christians, because a Christian is not supposed to live in that way. Christian meaning Christ followers. So when we follow Christ, there is nothing that our flesh should do in a wrong way, and then say and still think that we are Christians, and still think you will go to church, you will go to heaven and all that. That is not going to happen. And I'm not saying that holiness is very important, but at the same time holiness is very, very a delicate subject. Also, holiness is something very critical to maintain all the time, but still that's okay. Why? Because see, man born in flesh is a sinner from the time he was born. From the time he is in the mother's womb, he's called a sinner. So to attain holiness, or to be in to attain that is good, but being hypocritical, calling ourselves Christian, having Christian names, or telling the world that we go to church and all that, but living a life which is so different, which is not of Christianity, which is not of what Christ taught us, or which is not what Jesus said, is entirely a fake life. And that life and that flesh is definitely going to rot in hell, because Jesus is very, 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 very clear about what a Christian purpose and life should be, isn't it? Why? Because I don't know the scriptures, but I will quote that. He said, see, you might be doing signs and wonders and miracles in my name, but you will not enter into heaven. I do not know you, he says. Why does he say to such kind of things? Because he knows that, see, gifts are without repentance, right? But those gifts operated without the Spirit of God, meaning without the goodness, without the fruits of God, is in vain. And all the time, see, our Christian life is connected to spiritual life. Actually, this body is there to function as a normal human being in the world, but not to take the habits and the cultures, or the ways of the world, right? Because see, man, and all the time, that's why in this Lenten season, some people who have fasted or all that, we have to know, we have to recheck all the time, we have to clean all the time, we have to re-examine our lives all the time, because otherwise this Christian life will only be a namesake Christian for the world, but this Christian will definitely rot in hell. So, and I'm not talking about the wicked. Now the wicked portion is definitely they're doomed to hell. Though they are Christians, they're doomed to hell. They're doomed to their own destruction, because what they do, they're going to reap that, it says, and not in the life when they die and then go to heaven. Go to hell and then they reap there. No, they will reap right here on the earth, because the deeds of the world, the actions, the things these wicked people have done in this world, they will also reap it, because it says what goes around comes around. And and also he says, what you sow, in the Bible it's written, what you sow you will reap. Where? Because in heaven or hell there is nothing like reaping. There is only punishment there in hell. And in heaven there is goodness, there is holiness. That's it. So there is no something like God says, okay, you have come into heaven, now you have not done some things, so you have to rectify. There's no rectification in heaven at all. Now in hell, they don't, the devil doesn't say, okay, fine, you didn't do some things, you should have been more wicked than this, but I'll train you here, so maybe this is kind of like again classes for you. No, he won't say that. There is only punishment there. So God will put people, these wicked people, straight to hell, to be burnt alive, and so that is where it happens. But the deeds and actions that they have done, they will definitely reap on this earth, because this is where they have done, and this is where they have to see what they have done, right? See, for example, Saul, what did he do? He's kept as a soldier, which was actually his duty. He kept killing all the Christians. And then what did it, when he was from Saul to Paul, when he became, what happened? He turned, his life was transformed, to the likeness of God, to the purity of God. But did he not go through all the tortures and the torments and the harassment of this world? He did, because he had to learn what it was like to do the same to the others. So likewise, I'm giving a good example, but likewise, let's look at, for the wicked people, let's look at this example. Pharaoh and even Herod, what did he do? He killed all the babies in search of Jesus. And then he went around, tormenting Christians. And he went around massacring all the Christians and all that. How did he die? Instantly, those worms came out of his body and he fell dead. What about Pharaoh? How much he made the Israelites suffer. For for that, what happened on this earth to him? He got drowned in the water. He lost his son, the firstborn, right? And his kingdom was devastated, right? Why? Because all the plagues hit the Egyptians, not the Israelites, because of that man's wickedness. Then he himself drowned and died. So that will be the wrath and vengeance of God on the wicked on this earth then and there, at the appointed time of God. So here, coming back to, so that is why it is very important for us to be in the spirit all the time. Yes, we may get angry. Yes, we may get irritated. Yes, we may get not understand why and all that. That's all okay. See, for example, like today, I gave a complaint in the 2 years ago about this shutters, meaning they have opened something in the shutters, the mulgis or whatever this you call it, to have business running in their shutters or mulgis and all that, those big shutters that you see, which are supposed to be on the road. They opened it here. One man and his wife, they opened it here in the colony, and it's only a 25 feet road. Not only that, they opened right in front of my house. So right in front of my gate, So there is no, so it's not a public place. This is a colony. This is a residential place. And he did that. So I complained, and he's very close with these wicked people, and so I complained, and the authorities are not doing this. They just gave him notices, and that's all. They're trying to buy time, and they gave notices, and still he has put those shops, 4 shops right in front of the big shops right in front of my house. And so today, when I saw that, when I was seeing all that they were doing, I got a little upset and angry. So I tried to call them and reason, but that woman started shouting and talking nonsense, and then saying all kinds of mean and bad words and bad things and all that, for which this woman, Sarah, and her partner were right here. They were looking from her and encouraging her to do all that. So all this nonsense that went on there. So whatever may be the reason, in flesh we get disturbed. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, they putting in the colony like that is very wrong, against the rules of the roads and the infrastructure, and also the what do you call, the, I'm not getting the right words, like have houses and all that. You can build house as and how you like, right? Like the blueprint of the colony and things like that. So they have like illegally done that, which is, for me to get upset about that, because since 2 years I'm trying to get the authorities to remove that, and these people are bribing them, they're not doing that. Likewise, these people also, Sarah and Janus, they have built a shed, they're not removing it. It's built, and they have encroached, on my terrace. And so, and I gave a complaint on both of them. Both of them, since 2 years, nothing has been. I was very upset, naturally, right? When something is wrong, you do get upset. That's a different matter. But if I got upset and I went and hit them, or I went and, okay, that's not the example. The example is, like, if they were all good, okay, they were all good, they have not done any illegal things. But if I just went and hit them, if I just went and encroached in their place, if I just went and did, whatever, these wicked people do, god goons and all that, which actually happened to me, all these things that I'm saying, if I did that, what will be the punishment for me from God? I have to face those things, isn't it? Because on innocent people, what did I do? I hit them, I went against them, I got goons. Then what is God going to do? God is going to bring the same affliction and punishment. So what I'm saying is, see, it's very important how we conduct our lives, how we conduct. Yes, in flesh, there might be very upsetting moments, there might be very disturbing moments, there might be very unjust moments also, situations. But that doesn't mean that we become all worried or anything like that. But just take it to God. And and also it's very important that when we are in the spirit, we know what is going to happen to them. We know what is going to happen, what is the next thing that is going to happen. They do not know. Some man of God was saying it very profoundly. He was saying that, unfortunately, I think the woman of God. So, yeah, I think it's a woman of God. I was listening to her message, and she said, they do not know what is going to happen to them. Or even if they know, they would ignore. Because if you see Jeremiah, what was that? Jeremiah, I think 30, wait, in Jeremiah 30, 44, I think. Can't turn the pages because, I don't. Okay. I'm trying to hold this phone to record in one hand, and I'm also trying to turn the pages of the Bible. So, bear with me, please. In Jeremiah 44, if you see, God, they know that they're doing wrong. They do sacrifices. These are again Israelites, These are again Israelites, and then they quarrel with each other. They grumble about God, and then they do divination. They go against God. They worship the idols. They go against God, and then they do all that. So God is saying, because you're doing all these things, I'm also going to show you who I am. So, do they know? Probably yes and no, because in the wickedness, they do not understand what their next minute of their life would be from God. So it's very, very important. Now we'll leave the wicked to God. We'll come back to normal, Christians who are just like worldly, not hurting or harming or doing anything to others, but just they're enjoying life. And I'm not saying not enjoying is bad, but what I'm saying is enjoying to an extent that they forget God. Doing things to an extent that they are not supposed to do. I mean, put God and Bible behind, or worship behind and then do those things. Not that. So let's come back to those normal Christians who are like, who are lukewarm. So that is so dangerous because God doesn't like that, folks. God doesn't like that. We are born of spirit, and we should be knowing that God's Spirit lives in us, the Holy Spirit. When Jesus ascended into heaven, what did he do? Because he was not going to be on the earth forever, he gave his Spirit. And why do we call our bodies the temple of the temple of the living God? Why do we call our bodies as the temple of Jesus, temple of Christ, temple of the living God? Because he left his Holy Spirit in our bodies, and we are made in spirit. He breathed, right? And also another example is when God created man, he breathed life into him. He breathed ruach, so which is the breath of God. So we carry that in our lives. And one other person was also saying so beautifully that actually he's a prophet. He was saying it's a very old message, and suddenly, it came in the thing, and I was listening to that. It came in the reel and I was listening to it. It was just a 3 minutes, I think. He was saying that Jesus lives in us. So how should we be? Like if a guest comes, and this is my analogy, he said Jesus lives in us. And when Jesus lives in us, we have to walk like Jesus, talk like Jesus, behave like Jesus. It's difficult, but yet it's doable. And my analogy to this thing is, when we have guests in our house, how do we behave? We are very good. We are very cordial. We are very helpful, and we try to make their time the best time with us. So when we do that, how should we conduct our lives, knowing that our bodies are the temple of the living God, knowing that we have the Spirit of God in us? It's a different thing, right? See, we have the King of Kings in us. We have the God of gods. There is no other God besides Jesus, beside the God of heaven, right? So how should we behave? How should we act? How should we know what to do and what not to do? It's very important. Yes. See, and then of course these attitudes, these behaviors, these things, all of those things come, but then again we must be reminded that we must function in the Spirit. Why? Because see, also we'll be able to discern, we'll be able to know the right from wrong. See, sometimes when I talk to some Christians, they have zero, spirit. Really, I mean, I'm not saying in a prideful way, but I feel very pity for them. They have zero spirit, no discernment whatsoever. Nothing. I mean, sometimes I think are they even out of their mind? I mean, you're giving them a situation and explaining everything in detail, but yet they don't understand. Why? Because their senses are dead. Their spirit is dead. They're not keeping it active. Their mind is dead. See, when they don't have the Spirit of God in them, when they don't think that they are ruled and governed by the Holy Spirit or God and just they are very ritualistic, they will not also understand anything that you say. It is very sad, but they act very stupid and they act very foolish, and that should not be the way. Because why? God has given us the spirit of not a spirit of timidness or not a spirit of fear, but sound mind. What does sound mind mean? Sound mind means that you know with clarity, and you know it through and through about everything and every situation. And that happens when we have the Spirit of God in us. See, do you see how wicked people are? They all come together like 110, 15, 20 heads together because they don't have the Spirit of God. They're very wicked. They do not know. They don't have the mind of Christ, so they don't have the wisdom of God. So they come in groups to revolt, to attack, to do these things. They need like 10 heads. But our God is only one head. in no matter of time, like what he did to Goliath, what he did to Pharaoh, what he did to Jezebel, what he did to what is this all the other wicked people, Herod and all those people, and even the others who are not prominent, they got severely destroyed by God instantly at the battles, at the wars, we have seen in Hezekiah's time, and we have seen at Jehoshaphat's time what happened. So these things, of God is going to destroy them. But here my emphasis is very like on the Christians who are lukewarm or who are not in the Lord but call themselves Christians, and the other group who are like totally committed, striving to be holy, striving forward, uh, for the edification of church, edification of themselves, for purity, for cleanliness, both inside and out. So it's very important that we have those things being called as Christians, because otherwise when people look at us from the world point of view, it's a shame actually we're bringing to God. So in this Lenten season, in this Lent time, when we sit and talk, when we sit and talk, or when we sit and talk about Jesus or understand his ways, it's important to also imbibe on all these things. It's important to take his character in us, because see, Jesus on this earth was fully man too, right? He was fully man. He went through every situation and emotion that a normal man would go. Right? But did he overcome? Yes, he did. He overcame not just on the cross. There was a final thing, and that was the defeating Satan. But he overcame everything every day, right? Because it was in flesh. He had to overcome every temptation every day. He had to overcome every bad thing that was coming against him every day. He had to overcome every lies and gossips against him every day. He had to overcome anger issues every day. And he was rightfully angry with people. He should have been, but he didn't. He controlled. At the same time, when he was at the temple, that was totally right? Because then they saw the wrath of God. Actually, you can say that. I feel that, because when he went into the temple and these people were selling things, in the name of religion, he calls it the den. Why did you make my house a den of thieves? He says. He calls them a den of thieves. So it's important. It's important that and God's wrath was actually revealed there. So, but at the same time, when his mother came and asked him to make water into wine, and he was not even starting his ministry, but then he had to do this, obey his mother, which was so beautiful actually at that time. Obedience is so important. It's not just children have to obey parents. It's not just that is the main thing, but at the same time obeying one another, husband and wives obeying each other. There's no competition there, isn't it? There shouldn't be any competition, because both are equal. Both have equal roles to do. One apostle was talking about this so good. I mean, so right. He was saying that both are not equal. Men and women, they're not equal. Men are stronger, women are weak, but women have the courage and the potency and the potential to bring out the best things for herself. And the weaknesses that man has, he brings it out in being strong. So both give out their own way of dealing with life and coming together and making that bond so special. So that was beautiful, but so when, what am I trying to say? So the way we, so it's the same thing. Men are different, women are different, but when we come, and when both of them come as husband and wife, there is obedience there. you know there should be, because it's not that who's higher or lower, and the wife has to obey the husband, or the husband has to obey the wife. It's not like that. But again, the wife has to know that the husbands are the heads of the house. They are the head of the house. They're considered as the head of the house, and the woman is considered subordinate only in terms of other things. But in coming to obedience, she has to obey him. She has to obey her husband. The women have to obey their husbands and not rule over them. That's a Jezebel spirit again. If a woman is ruling her husband, that means she has a Jezebel spirit. If a woman is taking on everything in the world, and then trying to act as if she is the man lady in the house, then that's a Jezebel spirit. If she is not submitting, to her husband, then it is a Jezebel spirit. If she's being very argumentative, very, very controlling, it's a Jezebel spirit. So the women have to know where they stand and where their place is, but not take over the role of a husband in the house. That's definitely not the right thing to do. At the same time, the husbands can be henpecked. They shouldn't act like that. They shouldn't be subordinate. They shouldn't act like brothers or sons to their wives at all. No. You are the head. Act like a head, and what, in humility, not in a boastful way. In the right way. Decree your commands in the right way, not decreeing for being a male. What I mean. So that's that. But anyway, because it's a beautiful relationship, it's a beautiful bond that God has put together. The minute he created Adam, he knew that he had to create a woman for him, and it was first marriage we say it's a first marriage in the Garden of Eden. So it's a beautiful thing, and so that has to be carried out. But again, where there is no spirit, there is no freedom. Where there is no spirit of God, there is no freedom. So it's very important. And then the wicked people fear every day what is going to happen to them, what is going to happen then, how things will work, what their plans will be, how will they even get by those. They will not. God is going to destroy all of that. But with the people who call themselves Christians, normal people, all of the Christians should and ultimately, be in the spirit. See, when we are in the spirit, we know what to do and what not to do. We know what is right and wrong. We won't be quiet when wrong things happen. We won't be loud when the right things happen. You see? So it's very important. So that's why here, as soon as I read this, I thought of all these things in my head, like, how Peter, at one point, just 7 verses before, he was called, the rock. And then just 7 verses later, Jesus calls him Satan. So do you see that? Why? Because at that point, he was operating, because he was not a follower of Satan, but because he was operating in flesh. And those who operate in flesh are totally, walking or taking the help of Satan to do all these things. Again, there are different levels in that. But so importantly, as Christians, we need to, when we say we are Christians, connecting with God in spirit is most important, and that will emulate in our lives, right? That will give out the perception of how God sees, us. And that will also bring out the glory of God in our lives. Just because, your wife said, and sometimes the wives keep controlling, saying that, no, don't do that to them, don't help them, don't give out money, don't do this, don't do that, don't listen. Because if it is from God, you have to do that. But if it is not from God, and you know that it, she's saying the right things, then listen. But on the other hand, if the woman also wants to help, don't stop her. So there are a lot of things like that. Now this is not about husband and wives only, but I'm saying, between a Christian who is in the spirit, walking with in spirit, the God's spirit, and another Christian who's walking in flesh sometimes and spirit sometimes. So this is that kind of Christians that I'm talking about. Because here we see, say, Peter's life, right? 7 verses before, God called him the rock. 7 verses later, God said, get thee behind me, Satan. So it's that he was in flesh. So this is very important. In this time, yes, to live in flesh is very easy. But again, to live in spirit is very, very, very difficult. But it is doable. Why? Because we have the example of Jesus. We have example of all the disciples here, except Judas, right? He walked in flesh. He was greedy for money. What happened? He hanged himself and he died. Right? Not because he sold Jesus for the 30 pieces of silver. Yes, that curse came on him. Even though he would have lived, I think he would have still gone with the curse of, taking Jesus' life. But instantly he died because of his greed. Instantly. So that's very important, Excuse me. Being in flesh, being in the spirit, being in flesh is very detrimental to a Christian. Being in spirit is very, very, very blessing. Is a blessing to a Christian. So this is what I wanted to drive, the point today. And may the Lord bless this word. And thank you so much for listening.